Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Roundtable with me, your host Simon Conboy. Also got Arnie.
Hi guys.
And Dan.
Hi.
He's a little bit sad today.
I am immeasurably, unconsolably sad.
I am sad too.
So just to let you guys know what we're planning to do this episode, we're going to go over the main bits of news, pretty much mainly concerning injuries for the following few weeks, covering the big ones. And then we're going to go through each of the matchups for week 2, talk briefly about how each team performed in week 1 whilst we do that. But as Dan rightfully pointed out earlier, we're kind of in week 2 now. It would be a bit redundant to do all the game reviews. But check out my week 1 game reviews if you've not watched them. So, we'll hop right into it. And Dan, why are you sad?
Because, man, it's game over, man. It's game over. David Johnson's injured. That's it. Season over.
It's exactly what I feel about my fantasy team.
Yeah, it's a bad deal for you two. So, for those of you who don't know, which is probably very few NFL followers, David Johnson dislocated his wrist, had surgery this week, and is going to be out for the next 2 to 3 months, thus missing the vast majority of the season. Do we think the Cardinals showed enough in that game, or there's enough there for the team to get over this?
I don't think there is. Their offense just didn't look strong enough. The only, I think, thing that looked pretty good for them, I think their pass rush looked pretty decent in that game. But there was too many mistakes by Carson Palmer. It was bad O-line play for them. The receivers couldn't seem to catch.
Yeah, they still, beyond being really inconsistent.
Yeah, it didn't look good even with David Johnson there. So with him not there, I think the predictions on their win and loss ratio this year, I think, dramatically goes down.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, you know, that's the most undisciplined Cardinals team I've seen since the Derek Anderson era, and the mistakes were pretty much the same. It's basically what it was like watching. I mean, the good news is the defense looks alright. You know, the D-line's actually got pressure on Stafford, and the quarterbacks and the safety play was as good as always. So there's some good to be taken away, but David Johnson going down is pretty much could spell the end of the season. But we did re-sign Chris Johnson, so I'm quite happy about that. Stop shaking your head at me. I love me some Chris Johnson. I've wanted him on my team since I started watching in 2008, so now I've got him again.
You never know. Get this Cardinals team a time machine. Go back 5 years with Palmer, Fitz and Johnson, and they've got a chance. I think this is really bad for them. I think unless these running backs come out, because he's just such a big part of the offense. It's not just the rushing that they're going to miss. The entire game plan when you face the Cardinals was focused on stopping him, and now that teams don't have to do that, I think it's just far easier to deal with this team.
To have a callback to last week's episode, I think it was, if we go on to lose next week, God help us if we do, and if we generally have an overall losing season, yeah, this will be Bruce Arians' last season in the desert, and Fitz and Palmer will retire after this year.
Well, I think, you know, if they lose to the Colts, Bruce Arians might explode.
Yeah, but it is his old team, so.
Yeah, but they're really bad. We'll move on to another one. This is by far for me the biggest injury of the week, though. I think we can all agree on that one. Well, actually, no, there's one other one, and that'll be the next one we talk about. And I'm greatly saddened by this one. Eric Berry, out for the year, an Achilles injury.
Yeah, he played amazing on Thursday night. He shut down possibly the best tight end in the league right now, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, you know, shut down often. Made some stellar plays in the run game as well. He was just a force.
We've seen Gronkowski before in tight coverage and still make catches, still dominate the defensive back, but yeah, it's a massive blow to that team.
Yeah, he's so versatile. Arguably the top safety in the league. I still like the Chiefs a lot, especially on the defensive side. They're still incredibly talented, but no doubt that they are worse for this. Any team would be, so I think that's going to really hurt them. Dan, what are your thoughts on Mr. Berry?
Well, pretty much as Arnie said, he's been one of the only players that actually shut down Gronk in the passing game in, well, forever. I think the only other guy who could have done it way back when would have been maybe Ed Reed. But you've also got, it's not just losing his athleticism on the field though, you are losing that leadership presence on the field, which I think may hurt the D somewhat. But
Absolutely.
They're a ridiculously strong unit anyway. Hopefully they don't pull Cardinals when we lost Matthew a couple of years ago.
I don't think they will, but it's tough because the thing that I think Berry does better than anyone else is, the thing his greatest skill is his versatility. You can play him free safety, you can play a bit of nickel, you can play strong safety down in the box. He can do everything at a high level, and I don't know if there's a safety who can do everything as well as Eric Berry does. So, you can't replace guys like that. But, the Chiefs are in a position, I don't think, in some ways it's not as debilitating as the Johnson injury, but it's a tough one. Another one that I think might be a bigger deal than some people think is Danny Woodhead. He's out for 6 to 8 weeks with a hamstring injury for the Ravens.
Yeah, they were really sort of lacking at that position as well.
Absolutely.
I think he was a big part of their offense. It's fairly similar, if not, it's not as bad as David Johnson, but it's again, he was planning on being a big part of the offense with them, and the fact that he can catch balls in the backfield as well.
And Flacco loves throwing it to running backs.
Yeah, their running backs now, I think they've got Terrence West, and I can't remember the other guy's name now. But even still, they're more sort of pound the ball down the lines backs. They're not very versatile backs. It's again another injury for a team that a team lacking weapons cannot afford to lose one, especially the versatile kind of move around guy that Danny Woodhead is. So I think that's a tough one. Another big injury, I think, and this one's not been talked about too much from what I've listened to. Ronald Darby for the Eagles is out for 4 to 6 weeks. Now, I like this Eagles team. I've been, I hate the Eagles, but I think they're a good team. And, I've said I think they're my favourites to win that division, but I do think him being out is a big, big injury because their cornerbacks are, it's not the most impressive group. Yeah, we saw from him in preseason with the Eagles that he was going to be their number one, the shutdown corner that they needed. One of his first plays was a pick as well.
Yeah, he's an aggressive player. He'll get beat, but you take the good with the bad with a player like Darby.
He's a great player, and again, it's an injury they couldn't afford.
No.
I think a lot of these injuries this week have been players that from teams which they cannot afford that injury.
Yeah, I think this one certainly hurts them. I've not really looked at their schedule for the next few weeks, but there's some good receivers in that division, so it's gonna be rough. I think that hurts their chances a little, but the way their front four played on Sunday, they might be able to get by. Should be healthy down the stretch. I think that's the important thing for them. Another one, Jaguars wide receiver Allen Robinson, another one of Arnie's fantasy team. He's done for the year, tore his ACL.
This one I don't think is going to impact them a great deal, even though Allen Robinson is their true number one guy. I don't think it's going to impact them a huge amount, given the fact of what I saw from that Jags offense is they're just going to pound the ball. They don't want to put the ball into Blake Bortles' hands. They're trying to limit the amount he throws. And I think he only got targeted twice in that game anyway before he got injured. One was a catch, one wasn't. So,
well, I think
with Alan Hearns there as well, I think Alan Hearns can be the guy to kind of take his sort of place, and I don't think they'll miss him as much.
I think this one comes down to how much faith you've got in the Jags. If you think they're a legitimate playoff contender based off Sunday, I think it's a big deal. Because when it comes to playing the good teams, they're going to at least need to have the threat of a high-end receiver, which they just don't have. They've got very little depth at that position. I like Hearns and Robinson as a pair, and Marquise Lee's okay as a number 3, but once you get rid of the best of the 3, they're really, really weak at that position. So if they do end up being a contender, I think this is a big deal. If they're the Jags I'm expecting them to be, even with the defence playing as well as it did, it's pretty meaningless. If anything, it just means they might get an even better draft pick.
Yeah.
But obviously it hurts the team. I mean, it makes them that much easier to prepare for.
Yeah.
Another Cardinals injury. I've got the left tackle, DJ Humphries. He's probably going to miss maybe 2 to 4 weeks with a sprained knee. Cardinals pretty thin on the offensive line. They were really hoping that Humphries, former first-round pick, would step up. He's had a rough career so far. What do you think this does for Carson Palmer and the Cardinals, Dan?
It's just replacing a turnstile with a less good turnstile, isn't it?
I got to be honest, this is a huge deal necessarily. This is one of those that could end up working out, because I think Humphries hasn't shown me anything at this point in his career, so you never know. Obviously tough for him, and it hurts depth because teams tend not to carry too many linemen, but I'm not sure this one's a huge deal.
Well, for a team that didn't have impressive O-line play, I mean,
it's definitely a concern.
It's a concern at the same time. It might be something that is beneficial to them in the long run.
Well, let me put it this way. Do you know the difference between before he went down and after he went down during the game?
Not a lot.
Nothing. There was no difference. Carson Palmer still got chased out the pocket, still couldn't run the ball, still couldn't do diddly poo, so it's fine.
You just wanted to say diddly poo.
Yes.
Considering you're playing the Colts this weekend.
Oh, what a happy coincidence, actually. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. And then we got 3, what I guess are week-to-week injuries at this point. 2 linebackers in Donta Hightower and Reuben Foster and Myles Garrett. Which one of these do we think is the most significant injury?
I would say Donta Hightower.
Yeah, I think kind of by default, they're the team that's going to compete.
Yeah. And he's such a big part for that defense as well.
Yeah, he's the leader.
He's a great leader, great all-round player as well. And
their front 7 looked really soft on Thursday, so I think that could be a big. If he only misses a couple of games, I don't think it's a huge deal. They got the Saints this week; it'll hurt them a bit there, but I think they'll be able to get by.
Yeah,
Garrett being missing is a shame, but he'll be back. Same with Reuben Foster. It doesn't hurt him too much for the long term. My only worry is that these 2 teams rush them back.
Yeah, but I mean, with the Garrett injury, it shouldn't be an issue for their defense, given the fact of they don't know what the defense even looks like with him there. So, I mean, he could come in all guns blazing, teams won't be able to prepare for him.
Maybe. I just think
back.
The Browns, it's still, and the Niners, they're in the ultimate level of rebuild where anything they get from these guys is for the future. It hurts their development a bit, but I don't think, the grand scheme of things, it's probably not going to be a huge thing. Hightower, though, I think they're lucky they're in such a soft division, the Patriots, because there were a lot of concerns from Thursday's game for me. And, if they drop another game, they could lose to the Saints. It's not inconceivable at all. But he's going to be missed in that one. He's the guy that gets them all organised. But yeah, the other two, it's a shame because I'm looking forward to seeing both Foster and Garrett, probably the two best defensive players in the draft, in my opinion. So that's disappointing. But they'll be back. We'll get to see what they've got. Is there anyone else that we feel like we've missed?
Not of the big significant. There's a few injuries.
It would be here all bloody day if we went for everyone.
But yeah, I'd say they're the major.
Yeah, the only other one is obviously the Jags. Kalen Ramsey has got an issue with his ankle, but it's just missing practice. I don't know if he'll be out game time.
Yeah, I mean that's been going on throughout the summer. I don't know how much significance it's going to have when it comes to whether he plays on Sunday. I think it's a lot if he doesn't, of course, but we'll see. All right, in that case, we'll move on. So we'll start with what is the first game of the week, and certainly not one of the ones I'm looking forward to. We've got the Bengals playing the Texans. Wow, this one's it was a playoff game a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Does that way now, does it? We'll talk a bit, I suppose, about how both these teams formed. As I just sort of hinted at there, I think these two teams had two of the worst performances in all of Week 1.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati's the only team not even to put up a point.
Yeah.
And they were very disappointed. There was a big explosion on that offense. Nothing going on.
Joe Mixon did absolutely nothing.
Houston was the same on the offense. I mean, it was a very disappointing. I mean, well, we kind of knew the offense would be quite disappointing anyway, especially with Tom Savage, the way their O-line looked with no Dwayne Brown there.
Yeah, that really
They couldn't pass protect at all. I mean, they gave up 10 sacks to the Jags.
Man, I've not seen... Well, I don't know if they benched Savage because he was playing poorly. Not that he had a choice. You could have had any quarterback in league history back there and doomed to fail.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I think... Because we've seen this with Bill O'Brien a lot. He loves the quarterback carousel around there. I don't know whether he's done it by choice or because obviously it's just something he's to do.
I think with Watson, that's the thing. I think they're going with Watson on Thursday.
Yeah,
but
they are.
They've got to go with the guy that's mobile based on that game.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly.
The Bengals can rush the passer as well.
Yeah,
you know, Geno Atkins could easily replicate what Calais Campbell did to this team.
Yeah. But I think that's exactly why they pulled Tom Savage. I don't think it was necessarily the poor play. I think it was more down to the fact you've got a mobile quarterback back there. At least he can escape that pocket and try and make a few plays and try and edge closer and back into that game. It was always going to be a difficult one to do.
I think it's the right decision. Savage is a very
against Cincinnati as well. I think we might be looking at a very similar game for Houston.
Potentially. I mean, if you're Houston, the thing that's got to be most disappointing, other than the pass protection, which is obviously where it begins, is the performance of that defense. They just...
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't getting gashed, but they just weren't able to make a play. JJ Watt and Jadeveon Clowney having one tackle each. Yeah,
I mean, they got a couple. I looked at the injury report for the game for tomorrow, and there's seven injuries. I mean, they've got three
tight ends getting a concussion. How does that even happen?
I don't even know who their next tight end is. I don't even know if they have a tight end.
They probably wouldn't have. They probably had to go get someone off the street. I mean, I can't imagine they were carrying 4. So yeah, I mean that's got to be a concern, of course. The Bengals, they didn't show a huge amount, but their defense didn't embarrass itself at the weekend. It was only the Ravens. I don't expect the Ravens offense to show us too much. And they gave up a horrific play to Jeremy Maclin, which I'm still not over how bad that was. But really, Bengals defense, you can't really blame them for that game. I mean, they were put in some bad spots. Andy Dalton had one of his worst games as a professional. 4 interceptions and a fumble, and under 200 yards. That's pretty dire.
Yeah.
So I don't know, if you're the Bengals, both of these teams have to be thinking the same thing. They have to figure out how to block players. End of story. Both of these quarterbacks were under siege. So that's... And both of these teams can rush the passer. So this one could be really, really ugly. You got anything to say on this one, Dan, or you just like don't care?
Well, we're looking at two of the worst performances of week 1 here. I mean, Houston came out the gate and were just god awful. Bengals scored no points. That's a story in of itself. Although I also add, actually, the day afterwards, day after Sunday, they were starting to question the quarterback situation in Cincinnati, as I predicted they would, because it always happens. When you get completely closed out like that, they're going to be like, can he play for this team? But it's the same question that's been raised.
The thing is, Dalton, this is the first time he's ever playing behind a subpar offensive line. For the most part, his time there, they've been one of the best units in the league, and it looked awful. I mean, he didn't get any help from the run game, but still, some of those picks were just bad decisions. Was just hanging around in the pocket far too long. Looked indecisive all game. Clearly rattled. I mean, how are we even supposed to pick a winner from this one, based on what we saw?
Well, this game all comes down to what offense gets going.
Oh no! Wait, I know how to choose. The Texans are starting. Oh god, what's his name? QB Watson.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually starting him. I'm gonna take the Texans, although Arnie wants the Texans to lose for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go with the Bengals. I think they're at home. I think Houston looked really poor on both sides. The only thing, like, even the run game was probably the biggest highlight, and that wasn't very good. I just think the Bengals come out and they look to get some revenge in this one. I think AJ Green will have a big game. I don't know who can cover him, but Houston's got. And I just think the Bengals, they've got more weapons. I think Deshaun Watson against a pretty good defense, it is going to have a really tough day. Not a great way to start his season, I don't think, especially without Dwayne Brown there. So I'm expecting it to be awful. Definitely not looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those games. I'm just going to catch the highlights. I'm not watching this tire fire live. Sod that.
Arnie, who you got in this one?
I would have to go with the Bengals. I mean, given the fact that the defenses at the moment, and especially the way they played, were very similar. But the offenses, you have to go with the better offense, and I will put a lot more of my faith in AJ Green and Andy Dalton.
There's still weapons there. It's just
then an unimproved Deshaun Watson and no tight ends and one receiver.
Also, I feel like the Bengals lost to a better team.
Yeah,
the Ravens, the Ravens' defense, I know is legit. The Jags, it could well be, but I want to see a bit more from it. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Next up, we got an AFC North game. We were just talking about the Ravens, and they're playing host to the Cleveland Browns, who were, let's face it, far more competitive than people were expecting against the Steelers. So I was expecting that one to be ugly, get out of hand early and stay that way, but that was not the case. The Browns were absolutely in this game throughout.
Yeah. I mean, I really like the look of Deshaun Kaiser. I think he had a great game.
Played okay, held the ball a bit too long. The offensive line disappointed me. I was expecting bigger things from those guys.
Yeah, especially with the amount of money they put into that line. But I think with the offensive line, it does come down to, over time, they need to group together and have that more experience together. We saw this in Tennessee. But, well, for this game, I expect, again, it's not exactly another great game.
No. It's not an exciting one.
No, that's not necessarily true. I suspect this is going to be a defensive slugfest, to be honest with you. This may actually be quite enjoyable to watch. I mean, to be honest with you...
it's how bad the level of offense that's played is. Like, I like watching good defensive games when both teams like had competent offenses. I'm not sure either one of these. Like, did anyone? Like, have you seen how many times the Ravens ran the ball in that game?
Yeah.
Like, well over 40. Joe Flacco threw the ball like 16 or 17 times.
Yeah, I think that was their plan for him because he was of the injury. So maybe we'll see him throw a little bit more during this game.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, I still expect the Ravens to come out of this one with a win. I think it'll be a competitive game, and I think it will be a close game. But
based on what we saw from the Ravens' defense, they looked legit. I was concerned about the pass rush heading into the season. I knew the run defense was going to be sound again. I love their secondary, but yeah, they had pass rush. And Terrell Suggs
looks like he's lost 10 years.
He had a great game. He always plays well against the Browns. I mean, it's just when I look at the Browns, I don't know how they get much going against this team. Because, I mean,
they haven't
guys had flashes, but I just feel like he'll be drawn into a couple of mistakes. I actually don't think that we'll see Flacco throw the ball much more in this game. I think they'll go with a similar plan. I think they'll pound the ball, just slow the game down, and I think they'll capitalise on a couple of Kaiser mistakes and manage to pick up the win. But I think the Browns will impress people again.
Yeah, I mean, I think they will impress throughout the year. They're a very young team. They've got a lot of development there. They've got a lot of players that have got a lot of potential. So.
See, I've actually got this going to the Browns because they stayed competitive right until the end whistle against Pittsburgh, and I think Pittsburgh are the better team between them and Baltimore. So I think they could scrape this one out.
They could. I mean, I just don't trust this Ravens offense enough to think. I feel like any team will have a shot against Baltimore this year because you've just got to get a couple of big plays from somewhere.
Oh yeah, totally. But I think based on what we saw Sunday, I think for once this isn't a clear write-off of the Browns. So I've got them winning this just by a hair, or they're going to lose by a hair.
I mean, it's tough because like both of these teams, like Baltimore defense was above my expectations this weekend. The offense, we're just going to need to wait to see what it looks like once Flacco, is back to full health. I feel like it's really hard to judge them at this point, particularly when the Bengals just laid a stinker like that. Browns have to be really positive, frankly. They actually tackled people last year. If they had an answer to Antonio Brown, they win the game. We'll move on to the next one. This one also not particularly exciting. We're building up here, guys. We're building up to the more interesting games. We've got Buffalo heading to Carolina. Both teams won. However, they did beat, the Jets.
Arguably the two worst teams in the league.
Yeah. So, yeah. What do we think of both of these teams and this matchup?
Well, surely this is going to be just a rout of the Bills. Surely, no one's.
Did you watch Carolina? They didn't look capable of routing anyone.
Yeah.
No, Cam Newton didn't look great. You got to expect Cam Newton to get a bit better. I mean, he is still coming back from an injury.
Yeah, I mean, he's not had a whole lot of time with the team.
Well,
but
Christian McCaffrey,
he was awful.
He was very, very good. But I think Christian McCaffrey will have his way in this game. I think we might see a bit of a breakout from him in this game. I mean, the Carolina defense didn't look too bad.
It looked good. It's just, it's the Niners offense.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to tell whether the defense was good or not. I mean, it'll be the same sort of thing.
Well, you can only beat what's in front of you, but, I'm not going to jump to any conclusions based on the fact they held the Niners.
Yeah, the key for them will be stopping LaShawn McCoy, and that's it.
Yeah, I think they can do that. My concerns if for the Panthers, and this probably is these first 2 games are not the games to test that. It is the passing game, because Charles Johnson and Peppers are players that are, past their prime, and Lotulelei gets no pass rush. So that's my concern for them, and their secondary doesn't look great. Against the run, they'll be stellar. They got those linebackers. They got Quan Short, Lotulelei. They should be fine. LaShawn McCoy is a different animal, and I've got no doubt he'll make his plays. But yeah, Carolina, the offense just didn't impress me too much. Offensive line struggled. They're a poor group, frankly. They're okay on the interior, but those tackles aren't great. The receivers, like Benjamin, it was hard to even judge them. Cam was, that off, and they ran the ball, 40 times?
Yeah.
I like the mix they had of Stewart and McCaffrey. I think they tried to give McCaffrey the ball a bit too much, but I
think this is one of those games. It's too hard to call, but you have to give the edge to where the
Carolina. I think Carolina's just got more playmakers on both sides of the ball. Yeah. Exactly. I think they match up well with this Buffalo offense, and I don't know what Buffalo has beyond LaShawn McCoy and Tyrod Taylor making the odd crazy play.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bills, again, you can only beat what's in front of you, but I'd like to see, if you're playing the Jets, and the Jets played hard, I'd like to see you just handle them, make that game a lot easier than it was. And I don't think they did that. This front four, though, for the Bills, their front four is really good. They could get a lot of pressure on Cam. So I don't expect the passing game for Carolina to be a huge factor here. I think they'll go with a similar game plan. So it'll come down to how well Buffalo can stop the run. But Tyrod Taylor's going to have to play a clean game. LaShawn McCoy's going to have to break a couple of big plays for there to be anything here. I don't trust Taylor against this kind of defence at all. So I think Carolina end up sneaking the win. I don't think it's going to be impressive, and I think the game's going to be a bit scrappy, but I think the Panthers end up getting it.
Yeah. I would agree on that.
Yeah, I think this game is basically going to be a battle of the running backs and who can stop the run first. You've got 2 extremely mobile, quick quarterbacks. You've got 2 really, really good talents in the running back for both teams. It's going to come down to which D can stop the run more effectively. That's basically about it. But as far as I
could well do, turnovers will be big. Both quarterbacks are prone to the odd boneheaded moment. So
yeah, but as I said, this one didn't even need any thinking about for me. I think Carolina's going to easily win this.
I think Carolina's just more pedigree.
I mean, don't get me wrong, both teams in week 1 face both the 2nd and 3rd worst teams in the league at the moment, so can't say nothing about either team yet.
Speaking of worst teams in the league, should we move on?
Is that a dig at my boys?
No. Seeing who you're playing this weekend.
Oh yeah, so we're gonna move on to the trappiest trap game that ever trapped in the league.
Is it though? Is it? They were that bad. So we've got Dan's Cardinals heading to Indianapolis to take on the Andrew Luckless Colts.
Right.
And really, Luckless describes them both literally and metaphorically.
Well, let's get something straight here. The Cardinals obviously can't afford to lose this game.
No, absolutely not.
Who we're facing. This should be a gimme because we're
based on week 1, absolutely. Let's talk about how bad the Colts were first. Let's get this one out of the way.
They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop the pass.
They couldn't stop the run. Todd Gurley only had 40 yards on 20 attempts.
Yeah,
look at his numbers. All his numbers came through the air.
Yeah,
but the biggest number was 46.
Yeah, exactly.
That's basically all you need to know about this team against what is effectively still pretty much a rookie-ish QB. He hasn't played a full season yet.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the Colts, and the only thing you can say is you defended the run okay.
I think that was the game plan going in.
Yeah, that's positive. You defended the run okay. Your pass rush was non-existent.
Put it this way.
The secondary kicked apart as a result. The offense I mean, the offense.
That game was basically a game.
Two pick six.
That game was basically a game of good job, guys. Here, have participation trophies, because let's face it, you're never going to do anything, even against a Rams team that's not proven.
Well, that's the thing. Getting blown out like that by the Rams.
They did it last year. The Rams did it
last
year as well. They just apparently
thing is, like, they had a chance in this game at one point, like early in the game. Marlon Mack scored what was a touchdown, but they ruled him down at the 1. And Chuck Pagano doesn't challenge this. He decides we'll rush a play to the 1, and they end up kicking a field goal. And it was clearly in. If he challenged, I think there's a more than a good chance that he wins that challenge.
Yeah.
But
right.
But you know, this.
It's just a way of highlighting that's what kind of a disaster this game was.
This Colts team going into this game is basically we're going to be facing a practice squad. Is basically all it comes down to. And
well, I mean,
there's no reason the Cardinals lose unless Carson Palmer is. If Carson Palmer turns out to be bonehead Carson Palmer.
Do we think we see Scott Tolzien or Jacoby Brissett?
Brissett.
I think so. I'll be starting.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think they have to. I think Tolzien was that bad. I think they've got no choice. I mean, if you're the Colts, I think you go into this game and you think, you know what? If there's one team that might be on a real down after, losing David Johnson and kind of the way they performed last week, maybe it'll be the Cardinals. Not that the Colts will probably be feeling much better about themselves. I'm trying to think how they would attack the Cardinals in this game. Yeah. And it might just be lots and lots of Frank Gore and Marlon Mack.
No, man, it won't matter. The Cardinals will unleash Chris Johnson and he'll go for like 200 yards in one game. That's what's going to happen.
You keep driving that
so straight.
Chris Johnson hype train. It's just you.
Of all the games for Chris Johnson to come back to play in, this is the best game that he could have done it in. Then
there's no other podcast that cares this much about Chris Johnson.
Yeah, and if he performs really, really well, it turns out that I'm awesome and everyone else is wrong.
If he wins Comeback Player of the Year, I will kill myself.
Come back from what? Come back from being fired?
Come back from raging mediocrity for 2 seasons, yeah.
No, it was good the season he had to fill in. Anyway, this is
completely... And he came back from that gunshot, remember?
Yeah, but whatever. This is completely beside the point.
Yeah, we're getting off topic. Stop. No more Chris Johnson talk. If the Colts, you've just got to try and run the ball, and hopefully get some pass rush. But I think lots of running.
Yeah.
Cardinals. What did we think? I think that Cardinals-Lions game was one of the worst games I've seen in a while. Up until the fourth quarter, when Matthew Stafford remembered how to play football, this was just ugly in every way.
It was undisciplined. It was rusty. Fitzy dropped 2 gimme catches for Fitz. I mean, for other receivers, they're drops, but for him, they should be gimmies. No running game whatsoever. Obviously,
even when David Johnson was in there.
Yep, even when he got injured. But as I said, the takeaway was the defense played better than I expected them to, while Patrick Peterson giving up that touchdown on the scramble drill.
Well, I mean, neither team could run the ball.
Well, no, but the fact that the Lions.
That's got to be a concern. I really thought the Lions' defense was going to be pretty soft this year.
Well, our O-line is terrible, so.
Well, I thought they might be better this year. They were healthy, but yeah, they played really poorly, so they're still a concern. The receivers just carried on with their maddeningly inconsistent play. Couple of big drops. Palmer didn't cover himself in glory. He was constantly under pressure, threw some howlers. The overthrow for that second pick was atrocious. I think the third pick wasn't his fault, though, if I remember rightly.
The third one was the tip drill.
Yeah, but the Cardinals they need to get their stuff back in order.
Defensively, though, up until that fourth, I thought they were playing quite well. Looked good up front. Front seven looked good. Just the secondary gave up a few big plays at the end. But it was poor. I think you've got to be a lot of concerns if you're a Cardinals fan right now.
Yep.
Cool. So we've all kind of got the Cardinals in this one by default then.
Yeah.
That's fair. Moving on, we'll give you the lead on this one, Arnie. The Titans hosting the division-leading Jacksonville Jaguars.
It's weird to say. I don't like it. I'm really hoping that changes this week. But this game is at Jacksonville, as there was some sort of speculation that.
Oh yeah. But all the both the Florida teams are hosting the Buccaneers, the Jags. No moving about this week.
But I mean, if we just do a little recap from last week with Tennessee, I mean, the one player after sort of rewatching the game, the one player I was really quite impressed with actually was Adoree Jackson. I was quite impressed by his play.
I liked how he competed. Like he hung tough in that game. He didn't let himself get embarrassed by Amari. I thought Coop had a bit of a sloppy game. Had a lot of drops.
He did have a lot of drops. I mean, considering the fact that your first NFL start and you're facing one of the best receivers in the league, I mean, I think he did pretty good. And I mean, his hurdle on the return.
You did warn me this was going to come up. So
yeah, I mean, that's something of glory. I mean, he hurdled 3 guys. I mean, it was impressive. I mean, it just shows that he is an athlete. He's a true athlete, and I think he will continue to get better as it goes on. You can tell he's going to have a bit of a mouth on him as well. But a general play, I mean, I was really, really disappointed with the pass rush in that game.
I think the word for the Titans' performance overall was inconsistent.
I wouldn't say inconsistent.
It was a really kind of a bit of just a dud performance. It wasn't it wasn't particularly bad. It was just very, very mediocre.
Yeah.
Just not going to get it done against a high quality opponent.
I think the 2 things that we had a lot of success with last year was pass rush and running the football, and there was 2 things that we didn't have in this game. I mean, the outside pressure from Arakpo and Derek Morgan was great in that game, but Casey got overwhelmed in that game. I mean, he got trucked by.
Yeah, well, that interior is really good,
but Casey just had
the best interior in football, and they
Casey
played
had a really bad game. The linebackers were pretty much non-existent in that game. Apart from Woodyard, who made a few plays, but the secondary looked as weak as we had thought it would.
I was surprised they weren't attacked more deep. But the Raiders, I've said this before, Derek Carr is a dinky-dunk quarterback. But I thought they would have went after him a little bit. Like, they were throwing at Adoree Jackson like crazy, especially in the first half. But they weren't really testing him down the field. It was all intermediate, short stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it didn't help that we have now lost Cyprian for this game as well. We'll be starting Denari Cersei this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Cyprian's out this week. He's, I think it was a hamstring. But there was a few players I was quite impressed with that I wasn't expecting to be impressed with. Offensively, again, another rookie, Corey Davis.
He contributed more than I thought he would.
He looked really good. He didn't play on a lot of snaps. I think he only played. I think it was like 24 out of quite a lot of snaps that we had.
Understand about DeMarco Murray? I thought he looked a bit slow in this game.
Well, I had my doubts with DeMarco going into this year. I thought he was going to be a bit slow, a bit tired, a bit. The guy's 29. For a running back of that age to be doing that, it doesn't come off.
He's had a lot of carries in his big seasons.
Yeah, so
he just looked a bit indecisive.
Didn't he have hamstring issues as well in the off season?
Yes, he did, but he was fully healthy in this game.
Yeah, he really struggled. I mean, the run game as a whole did. Whilst Khalil Mack didn't do a huge amount in the...
Conklin handled him. I think the offensive line did great in the pass protection, but run protection, the
run blocking was awful. Khalil Mack basically made a car crash every time they ran to his side, and there was just nothing there all day. I was really impressed with the rookie defensive tackle, Eddie Van Dos for the Raiders. He did a great job inside.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I said this in the review, and I said this after the game. It was my first impression. I stand by it. The Raiders just executed better in this game than the Titans. Neither team. There were no big mistakes. There weren't a huge amount of penalties. It was quite a well-played game.
Yeah, the numbers were very similar on both sides of the ball.
Just the Raiders' offense executed. They ran the ball successfully up the middle. Marshawn Lynch looked good.
Yeah.
In return, still clearly got the power. And the Jarrell Casey play, in particular, exemplified. But also the fourth down run. There were a lot of broken tackles for him. Derek Carr played well, had some really nice throws. The touchdown, the second touchdown, the streak.
Yeah.
That was a really nice throw. He trusted his receivers a lot, which we have said chemistry for the Titans. I think that's going to come.
But I think we said this during the game as well. We obviously noticed that the chemistry wasn't quite there for the Titans. But we saw the complete opposite with Derek Carr and his receivers.
Oh, yeah. He
would be letting the ball go just before their breaks, and he was putting all of his faith in the receivers, and it was working. And we saw he was obviously that year ahead with his receivers than Mariota and our receivers. So I think it will come with Tennessee, and I think going into this game against Jacksonville, obviously we've got a big test. Jalen Ramsey might not be playing, but we don't know yet. But they've got a great secondary there. The defense in general for Jacksonville looked great. And it's going to be a big test of the run game and the pass game as well for us.
Well, that's one of the things I'm looking forward to with this game is in terms of forming an opinion on the Jaguars. Leonard Fournette looked great. The run blocking was pretty good against what should be a really tough Texans run defense. So that was really impressive. They kept the ball out of Blake Bortles' hands, which is like the best game plan you can have, other than benching Blake Bortles.
I believe they're going to do the same thing in this game.
Oh, absolutely. And it will come down to, and the Marshawn Lynch had success. So, I mean, the line isn't as good, but I think that's going to be interesting.
I think we will get some pressure in this game.
Yeah. They've got to try and take advantage of that, you'd think.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the ball, it's going to be a real test, I think, for the Titans' offense. We'll get to see where they are. I think we'll get a better idea who they're considering their number one receiver in this game.
Yeah. One thing I do want to see stop in this game is screen passes to Eric Decker.
I was literally just about to say you need to stop screening to the slowest guy on the team.
I mean, in pre-season we saw flashes with Tywan Taylor, with screens, with
they didn't get him involved enough in that game.
We only did it once. I think he got involved twice in the game. It was a fake end around to Tywan Taylor, and the play ended up getting blown up anyway. But we need to be using Tywan Taylor a hell of a lot more because the guy's got a lot of speed on him. He's very versatile when he's playing. I think it will bring the offense out of its shell as well and bring a new dynamic.
I do think Mariota will need to have a better performance this week.
He will. He did have quite a few overthrows and
he looked a bit indecisive. I think some of that might come from the chemistry.
Yeah, again, and that will come. I think we saw it last year with Mariota as well. Week 1, he was very shaky. When we were facing Minnesota last year in week 1, he had that pick 6. He had the fumble recovered. And I think it's just a case of Mariota seems to struggle starting hot in the season.
In terms of going into this game, though, I need to make a producer's seal of approval actually, because I'm looking forward to this game. This game between Jacksonville and Tennessee is going to be won in the trenches. Both sides. You've got that Jacksonville D-line going up against the Titans O-line, which is going to be a great matchup to watch. And then on the
I
side of the ball, I was actually very impressed how well the Jacksonville O-line did against those Texans front 7.
Yeah, they did.
That was extremely great job. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Titans front 7 versus the Jacksonville O-line. This is going to be one of those trench warfare games. It's going to be glorious to watch.
Well, I mean, in terms of how both teams approach this, the Jags are going to try and do the same thing. Leonard Fournette until his legs fall off.
Yeah, but as far as my
The
game
Titans just have to anchor down against that run. The matchup, this is going to be won or lost by how much success this Titans offense can have. Obviously, they're more skilled than the Texans offense, so we'll get a better idea as to where this Jags defense really is. I can't see them getting that kind of pressure. They're definitely not getting 10 sacks this weekend. But
no.
But the interior, that's what I'm interested in seeing, because we know the tackles are good in Tennessee, but how good's that interior? I think with Calais Campbell and Malik Jackson in the middle, we'll get to see that. Titans need to get a bit more out of that run game. I think it might be tough. That Jags run defense looks good.
The thing is, I didn't see again in last week's game was we didn't do a lot of two tight end sets as we normally do, and that tends to be where we have a lot of success running the ball, and we didn't seem to do that a lot during the game against.
Well, we'll see if that's what they do, and I just think the Titans have to think about trying to open the run up with the pass, and it'll be interesting to see what approach they take in doing that. I think they've got to try and take a couple of deep shots in this game, especially with AJ Bouye, I thought, played poorly against DeAndre Hopkins. Far too many penalties.
Yeah.
So, who have we got winning this one?
Well, I've obviously got Tennessee.
Dan?
Ooh, that's going to be... this is one of the hardest games to call this week. I'm going to go, in theory, with Tennessee based on offensive strength alone. I mean, they've got a wider complement of offensive weapons than the Jags do, so I'll go with the Titans. Hopefully, I mean, Titans got one of the best O-lines currently in the league, so maybe they can hold that front seven in check.
I'm going to go with the Titans, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Jags took this one. I just think the Titans match up pretty well with them. But, yeah, I feel like this one could go either way and could definitely end up being a huge game come the end of the season.
Yeah.
So I'll move on to a good one, finally. A really good game. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's just, with Blake Bortles, I can't consider it a really good game.
That's understandable. It's still the Jags.
It's not the Jags, it's Blake Bortles.
Yeah. Well, he epitomises Jags, so...
Well, he epitomises their issues. But we'll move on. So this, I think, is one of the highlights of the early slate. Philly travelling to Arrowhead to face the Chiefs. Two of the most impressive teams from week one. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this matchup.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I'll start on this one. We get to see two really good pass rushing teams against two pretty solid offensive lines. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know who's got the edge here. It's difficult. I mean, if you're the Chiefs, I think you've got to focus on running the ball. What I saw from that Philly pass rush is what I was expecting heading into the year. Those guys are good. They're going to get after quarterbacks all year long. You'll see Kansas City. I don't think they're going to go too far from what they normally do. Even against the Patriots, they were still incredibly dinky dunk.
Yeah.
There was a couple of deep throws in there. How much success Kareem Hunt has will dictate a lot of this. However, considering the state of these corners, Tyreek Hill could be in for a big day, and I don't know who they have that can cover Travis Kelce.
I mean, for me, I think the KC offense is fairly all-rounded. Their defense, obviously, losing Eric Berry is a big thing, but I mean, with Marcus Peters there, it's another rough going for the Philly wideouts. I mean, Aguilar might go in for another big game, but for the skill positions, I still have to give the edge to KC here. I mean, we saw last week as well that Wentz is still making those boo-boo mistakes, and
that
was
atrocious.
And I have a feeling he will do the similar sort of thing this week.
Well, I mean, KC were really impressive against the Patriots on both sides of the ball. The second half they played great. I don't know how much of it's down to the Patriots' defence kind of just crumbling, but Smith looked sharp. The protection was there against, admittedly, a very weak pass rush. But defensively, the Chiefs, I just think there is, even without Berry, I think they're still a pretty complete defence. I still think they're one of the better units. From Philly's perspective, I just don't know if I trust them like I trust the Chiefs. I feel like the Chiefs, you've got a pretty good idea what you're going to get most weeks.
Yeah.
They're very consistent like that. And the Eagles, as you say, Wentz is a boom or bust type player. I wasn't particularly impressed with their run game against the Skins. Defensively, loved what they did, but I've got some concerns with their secondary, especially with the Derby injury. This will come down to how much pressure they can get on Smith. If he can pick guys out, I think that he'll be able to pick them apart with short passes, and I think it's going to get pretty ugly. I don't know how much we can get done if you're the Eagles against this defense. I think the pass rush is really good coming from the KC side. I think they'll stop the run really well. I've got to give the edge to the Chiefs in this one.
I've got the Chiefs for this as well. I think, this is. I mean, granted, this is another one of, as far as I'm concerned, my must-watch games this week.
Yeah, it's a good
one. But I think I'm going to give the edge to the Chiefs just because I do think they're the more all-around complete package team this year. And plus, Andy Reid facing his old team, it's going to be good.
Cool. Anyone got anything to add on that one?
No.
Cool. So we'll move on with the pretty big game. Patriots are heading to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Both teams lost in week 1. Both teams had major issues defensively. The Saints looking like the same old Saints, and the Patriots uncharacteristically looking also like the Saints. And how do we see this one going?
I'm sorry, the Saints. I was watching that Vikings Saints game live. That was painful to watch. That Saints defense is not going to hold up against Tom Brady, of all people, to face week 2.
Well, I mean, the Saints did an okay job against the run.
Yeah,
but pass defense, once again, like every year, was just awful.
Yeah, I think Tom Brady's going to carve this team up. The problem is the way the Saints have built themselves is they can race teams scoring wise within reason, but the problem is that defense can't get a stop. You can't.
Well, we saw their offense. We saw their offense struggle a bit this week. The Zach Strief injury, which we didn't mention earlier, that really hurt them when he went down. They were getting pressure anyway. This O-line, they really missed Teron Armstead. They're down to their, what were going to be their second and fourth tackles.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is though, analysing, talking about the Patriots before they play a game is always difficult because they change up their game plan every week. It's so opponent dependent. I mean, we're going to watch a Patriots team that it'll be a completely different team all around. May I also add, it turns out that Adrian Peterson is a complete non-factor. As far as I'm concerned, watching that Vikings game, did nothing.
I barely got any touches. I liked what they did on their opening drive when they were really rotating the 3 of them in and they were playing it with a bit of pace. But I think we saw Breeze can't do it all behind this line, especially with Willie Snead missing. They just don't have that many weapons.
No, and I think
they really went with a run-heavy game plan, which I don't know if that will work against the Patriots. I think
it's so weird watching the Saints do a run-heavy game, but no, I've got this. This is all Patriots. Tom Brady versus what has to be at least 32, 31, 30 overall defense. No, the Patriots are going to carve them up.
Well, what do you make of the Patriots' Week 1 performance?
It was pretty abysmal for the Patriots of all teams. But
well, the second half was. First half they were fine, but I just don't know what happened.
Well, we're talking about a team that on scale is meant to be the top team in the league. They would have sorted it out this week though. That's the thing. It's a Belichick team. from now on they're going to be absolutely on fire.
They need to get, for me, that front seven was a major problem against KC. They need to get that sorted. Need to get better pass rush, and they have to play the run better. Historically, they play the run very well. I think the Saints, they're going to look at that tape and they're going to try and do the same thing to them. They'll play short passes. They'll try and run on them. If I trust anyone to make those adjustments, my concern is just that the Patriots' offense looked so out of sync in that second half. And I think some of that is, Danny Amendola got injured, so we're missing him and Julian Edelman, two of his favourite targets. And, the pass rush started to get there a little. I think the Saints might be quite aggressive in trying to get to Brady. They're going to have to be because they can't cover anyone. So,
well, that's the thing, though. That's going to be the tail of the tape this week. Is if everyone knows you put Brady under pressure. He struggles a bit. If they can't get any pressure during the game, no, it's game over. And to be honest, I think I don't see the Saints improving D-wise at all this year. So many hard-fought games they're going to have, there's just nothing there.
Arnie, you got anything to say on this one?
I'm actually going to go on the line here, and I think the Saints are going to pull it past. I just didn't see much from the Patriots defense. Yeah, the Saints defense, there was nothing with that either.
This one could be 50-50. The score, not who.
Yeah,
oh, well, yeah, it would definitely be a shootout, but I like what Breeze is doing more than what Brady was doing at the moment. I think Breeze can take a few more deep shots than Brady as it is, and I think that's what's going to win the game.
I think the Saints have more urgency. They need to win this game. The Patriots can afford to go 0-2, I think, in that division.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if the Saints go to 0-2, it's going to be tough sledding. So I think they come out, but I just can't see the Patriots coming out as flat as they did in that second half. And that Saints defence was that concerning. I think the Patriots edge it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way.
Well, also, I can't remember the last time the Pats lost 2 on the trot. I don't think Emperor Palpatine allows it, so I've got. Yeah,
it's rare. There it is. On to another good one though. One of the most impressive teams of Week 1, the Minnesota Vikings. I thought they looked great. Heading to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers.
This is going to be a good game.
That's a good game.
It's going to be a great game.
Is it though? The thing is, I can understand on paper, and if you just watch highlights of that Vikings Saints game, why you'd think that. But the thing is, though, there's a couple of glaring issues for both teams. The Vikings faced basically air in the form of the Saints D. Bradford, yeah, he looked good, and I said before the season.
It's probably one of the best games of his career. He looked great.
Yeah, well, I said before the season started, I thought Bradford looked good. He's going to be the starter, and overall he's going to play well. But the thing is, again, they're facing the Saints defense. This is the problem. Their D held up well against Breeze, granted. Yeah. And
their D, we know their D's a top unit. They played like it.
Yeah. But then on the other side with the Steelers, you've got the other problem of they played a close game against the Browns. Now, not to take anything away from the Browns, the fact that game was played so close and we saw nothing out of Le'Veon Bell that entire game, I think speaks to some issues they might have on the offensive side of the ball in Pittsburgh.
Well, Minnesota were one of the most impressive teams. They played great defensively, can have no complaints. They didn't get turnovers, but they got pressure. They defended the run well, covered well, just all round. Yeah, and offensively, pretty much an A-star performance. They ran the ball efficiently. It wasn't explosive. It wasn't great, but the pass game looked great. The O-line was shocking. They had an offensive line. Last year, they were one of the worst units in the league, and they looked really good. How much of that is on the Saints? That's what I'm looking forward to in this matchup, is seeing whether this Pittsburgh front that played really well against the Browns, because you can't argue with the Pittsburgh defense. I thought they did a pretty good job. They were on the field a lot in that game. So I thought they played well. TJ Watt looked fine. The pass rush was good. The defensive interior looked good. But, you got to be concerned what you saw from that offense. And the Vikings' defense is good enough to do a job on these guys. If they come out like that, the Vikings will handle them. So I think for the Steelers, Le'Veon Bell has to be involved early and often. You've got to get the other team keying on him. And Antonio Brown's got a tough matchup. He's Antonio Brown at the end of the day. So this one will come down to the offensive line and how successful Le'Veon Bell can be. If he plays like he did there, I don't think this team's going to have enough. Antonio Brown won't be able to do it all against a defense this good. And the Vikings, I think they've got enough weapons. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs are an underrated pair. Dalvin Cook looked really sharp. I actually like the Vikings to win this game.
Oh,
I've got.
Oh, you got the Vikings, so all three of us have got the Vikings. So I was going to say, actually, in respect to the Le'Veon Bell thing, if it weren't for the stat reel occasionally flashing up his stats on Sunday, I would not have known he was playing in that game, by the way, against the Browns.
No, true. I just think Minnesota will offer a really balanced attack. Defensively, I think they'll look to take away Brown and they'll dare Le'Veon to beat them, and I think they'll be good enough. I think they're really good up front. And on the offensive side, balanced. I think it'll be pretty dinky-dunk. They'll try to negate that pass rush, and I think they'll get it done. So we're going to move on. I'm going to take the lead on this one. Chicago heading to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers in the Buccaneers' first game, so that saves us some time in having to recap one. The Bears played the Falcons really tough. Very impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had opportunities. They had opportunities. I mean, there was a big bust on the Austin Hooper catch. It was like 88 yards or something stupid. And the Bears dropped a game-winning touchdown a couple of times on that same drive.
With you, I think. Sorry, just quickly. I think that's going to be the story all season long for the Browns with those receivers. That's going to be.
You mean Bears?
What did I say?
Browns.
Oh, my bad. I reckon that's going to be the story all season long with the Bears. Just get so close to striking distance, and during the game,
they lost Kevin White in this game. How much of a loss that is, we don't know, because he's barely played since he got drafted. But they did have a couple of significant injuries. They lost Jarrell Freeman. He's on IR, their best inside backer. I think that's a big loss. And it looks like Carl Long's also going to miss this game. And the strength of this team on the offensive side is that interior. And I think if you take one of those pieces away, I think that's an issue. Their game plan was really good. They looked to grind the game out. Tariq Cohen was used sparingly but very effectively. People, going nuts about him, particularly in fantasy circles. He was really impressive. I thought Jordan Howard looked good. Glennon played a clean game. Those receivers are an issue, though. They're definitely a problem. And defensively, the front seven played great. They got a lot of pressure. They managed to shut down the Falcons' running game. I think the Buccaneers are in a better position to have success than the Falcons' offense. I think they match up better against this Bears team because what you saw from the Falcons last year and what they were trying to do in this game, they used the run to set up the pass in the traditional way that is intended. There's a lot of bootlegs. There's a lot of play actions. And because they couldn't run the ball at all, the Bears just stayed in their coverages. They were pretty creative over the course of the game. And I don't think the Buccaneers will will really care too much for that because their passing game is just going to be, we're airing it out because look at all these people that we have.
See,
the weapons that the Falcons have, I think the Buccaneers have a far better set of weapons.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know about Arnie on this, but as far as I'm concerned, the Bears have the advantage in this game because they've already played one. You've still got the rust factor. This is my, I think.
In terms of Jameis Winston, I don't think that's as big a factor. He threw as many passes as any starter in the NFL in pre-season, and he looked sharp.
Yeah, but I mean, look. I mean, generally speaking, week one, if you look around the league, there are many teams who the passing, just wasn't quite
Well,
what you expect
it's
week
just a
one.
question of whether they look rusty or not. Some teams looked good, looked in mid-season form. The Chiefs, the Vikings. I can't base my assessment on whether the Buccaneers come out looking rusty.
Well, I mean,
It's a possibility. I have to, we've got to acknowledge that it's possible. But I mean, when you look at the matchup, Prince Amukamara's missing. Bryce Callahan is the number one corner for the Bears. Have you ever heard of Bryce Callahan?
no.
And he's going up against Mike Evans. You've got Kyle Fuller, who's been a bust, going up against Sean Jackson. Their best coverage linebacker in Jarrell Freeman's out of the game against Cameron Brayton and OJ Howard. I just think there's too many weapons for this team to stop. I think the Buccaneers are going to be really good against the run this year. And that's what this Bears team is looking to do. So I just think it's a horrible matchup for the Bears at this point in time. The injuries the Bears have make it even more difficult. I think the Buccaneers will come out, fired up. They've got to be, you'd think. They've got to play 16 in a row. I'd imagine they're pretty peeved at that fact. They just had a hurricane come in. The Bears really did impress me at the weekend. I thought they did a great job. But I think that's the kind of loss as well that can just be a heartbreaker, and it might carry over to the next week. And I think the Bucs come out, fire early. The passing game will just be too much. There's too many weapons there. And the Bears won't be able to keep up. That offense is far from explosive. So I think the Bucs win this one pretty handily, to be honest.
Well, the thing, as I said though, is I'm not going to underestimate the fact that you lot are basically going to be getting off to the coldest start that could be possible because you've missed week one, and I think it's a big factor going into it. Now, ideally, the Bucs will set the tone early. I wouldn't be surprised if Jameis takes a couple of deep shots within the first couple of snaps. But so on paper, yeah, the Bucs should win this. But the Bears, they've already played a week, so I think they've got the advantage there. But no, the Bucs should win this. But I wouldn't count out the rust factor.
Arnie, what do you think?
I think the Bucks have got this hands down. I mean, I can't see the Bears doing much, especially with the injuries that they've got. And
it's hard to really say they're going to beat too many teams when you look at that offense. When you've got Glennon throwing to Kendall Wright as his number one receiver, and then whoever else they can find that week to play 2 and 3.
Yes.
We said the same before the Atlanta game, and they lost it by an inch.
The Falcons played a poor game.
Yeah, the difference is the Falcons played poor and the Buccaneers' defense is 10 times better.
Maybe not 10 times, but yeah, I like the Bucs defense a lot more than the Falcons defense. Anyway, we'll move on from that one. We've all got the Bucs. So we've got the other team that missed week one, the Dolphins. They're heading to LA to take on the Chargers, who I thought were very disappointing on Monday. That game ended up looking close, but it wasn't.
No.
The Broncos.
I think this game will be close. We don't know what we're going to see from Miami yet. It would be some question marks there. But I think Miami will edge this game.
Dan, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, to be honest, similar to the Bucs, the Dolphins have had a week off, but I didn't actually catch that much of the Chargers game this week.
The Chargers' offense was really poor.
Yeah,
their defense played okay, kept him in the game, got some good pass rush. Melvin Ingram had a heck of a game. He was a boss.
Well, I'm expecting, with Jay Cutler there, I'm expecting the Dolphins to rely heavily on the Jahi, and
absolutely,
he'll carry them. He'll carry them to the win.
Well, from what I saw of I say what I saw. I watched that game, and the Chargers defensively looked really good against the pass. Their 2 corners, Verrett and Hayward, did a great job on Sanders and Thomas. Pretty much kept those guys quiet all game. The 2 edge rushers, Bosa didn't have his best game, still ended up with a couple of sacks, but Ingram was a menace. but they didn't shut down what's a pretty mediocre Broncos run game. And, that just says to me, especially with a pretty patchy O-line, the Dolphins are just going to run the ball like crazy on them. I also think the Dolphins have a good defensive matchup. Their defensive line looks really good. The Chargers pass protected okay, but I think it's a pretty tough one. Philip Rivers is going to have to do a lot of work in this one.
Yeah, the thing is though, but with both this and the Bucks game, this is we're basically only calling realistically one half of the ball. You can't really say anything about the Finns or the Bucks. Preseason is nothing after all, so.
Well, I mean, you've got to go based on last year, and like the Dolphins, the run game was pretty good. The offensive line, spotty in pass pro, but I think they'll run block really well. The receivers, I'm not sure how much success Cutler will have against this pass defense. Like, this is a tough game to call for that reason. If Ajayi goes absolutely, crazy in this one, then I think Miami wins handily. I just don't know what to expect from this Dolphins defense against this Chargers offense, because I feel like the Chargers offense has to be better than it was. And bear in mind, they were playing the Broncos, and the Broncos defense is legit.
Yeah,
their receivers didn't have much success against the Broncos corners. That's those corners are great.
Chargers O-line hold up?
Did better than I thought. A lot better.
Okay. So they're
You didn't run the block very well though. Gordon had a pretty quiet game.
So they're going to go from facing Von Miller to facing Sue and Cameron Wake.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe a big problem.
I think if you're the Dolphins, you just try and run the ball. I think you just sit in coverage and you just rush with the four guys and hope that's enough. If you're the Chargers, I think you've really got to adjust what you were doing offensively, because it just looked really poor last week. I think they'll be quite aggressive though. I think they'll go after this Dolphins secondary. I think the Dolphins will win this one though.
Yeah, I'll put the Dolphins.
I don't know why, because I think the Chargers are a better team, but I see the Dolphins sneaking this one. Arnie, what's your opinion?
Dolphins, as I said, just that.
Fair enough. Oh, I didn't hear you. My bad.
Yeah, Ajayi will run all over them, I think.
Fair dues. Right, we'll move on. This one we won't need to spend too long on. The Jets are one of the worst offensive-looking teams I've ever seen. It looks that way against the Bills.
We spoke about Oakland earlier.
They're heading to Oakland. Yeah, Oakland looked good.
Oakland win.
Oakland should win this one handily. I mean, the strength of the Jets is the defensive line, and they've got to go up against that Raiders front.
Well, this is the second trap game of the week. But no, Raiders win this handily. We're looking at 40-50 burgers. Jets are going to score basically nothing. Job done.
Yeah, it's just this Jets offense. I'm basically going to pick against them anytime they play someone I consider competent. So not a lot to say on that one. The Jets, they played like you'd expect. Thought the defensive line was a bit quiet though. I was expecting more from Leonard Williams and co. We'll move on to a pretty good one actually. Dallas heading to Denver.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not getting the excitement from you guys there.
Because
this game will be good on one side of the ball.
I don't know. The Dallas defense, it's hard to say. There's so many new pieces there, and the Giants were utterly incompetent on Monday. That I'm looking forward to seeing more of them. Jalen Smith looked good. Sean Lee was great because he's Sean Lee. The defensive line got quite a lot of pressure. Charles Tapper and DeMarcus Lawrence both played well. Secondary didn't get tested at all. Again, the Giants' offense looked as bad as any in week one, so I don't know what to make of that. Dallas, you know what they're going to do defensively. They're going to play cover 2 all day long with the odd blitz and stunt thrown in every now and then. Offensively, they look like they did last year.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to put him over with Denver. I think they're going to pound the ball down them. I don't see them throwing the ball a lot like they did last year, and I think they will have the edge.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Zeke's going to be playing again. Denver played well against the run this week, but last year they really struggled with it. Von Miller's going to have to play really well, I think. I like the matchup there. Dallas, I don't see them attempting to throw too much on these guys. There's just too much talent in that secondary, and I don't really rate the Dallas receiving group. Bears might have another quiet week. But, and Denver looked good, actually. We should mention that. I thought Trevor Siemian played well. The offensive line was a million times better than last year. They did struggle with those two edge rushers, but that's probably as good a pair as you're going to face all year. And they had a run game for the first time in about 3 years. First time in about 3 years. They went for about 140, 150 yards.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the offensive play.
Yeah,
Siemian looked solid.
Siemian looked good, made good decisions. He's accurate in the short and intermediate game. Didn't take too many chances. Run game. CJ Anderson played well. Yeah, the receivers got shut down by a pair of really good corners. They didn't go to them too much. The stats weren't impressive in the past game, but they controlled this game throughout. Yeah. And defensively, they looked better against the run, and their pass defense is still the best pass defense in the league for my money, or at least it's between them and Seattle, and they played like it. I just think Dallas has too much for them. As long as Zeke's on the field, I just think they'll be able to grind this Broncos team down, and it's going to be a low-scoring game. But I favour Dallas to win this one. How about you guys?
Oh, really? That's surprising. I've got the Broncos winning this.
Fair enough. What's your logic to that?
I believe in the Broncos defense, and I have an irrational hatred of the Cowboys.
Well, it's not irrational. It's the Cowboys.
Yeah, it's basically well, in all seriousness, I think that the defense is going to win out, provided the offense puts up points where it needs to and doesn't make any mistakes. I don't see how Dallas are going to compete with that defense, and I see them actually holding Zeke.
Fair enough. Arnie?
Dallas, as I said earlier.
Oh.
Run game.
Yeah, don't get in there too quickly. Save it for the end. Next up, this one's not exactly fascinating. We've got the Redskins heading to LA to take on the Rams.
This is fascinating. This is
Kirk Cousins is playing.
This is now the head coach of the Rams going back to his old team. How is this not fascinating?
Just because Kirk Cousins is playing.
And because Kirk Cousins is playing, because he's...
Well, this game is a test if that LA offense is actually good. I mean, last week they didn't really have a test.
No.
They were going to no one. Against no one, rather. I think this week...
will offer more, I've got no doubt.
It's going to be more of a test of them. It'll be more of a test for Cooper Kupp. It'll be more a test for Jared Goff to see if he's... Because I thought Jared Goff looked really good last week. He looked competent.
He looked good. There was no pressure in that game.
Yeah.
I think
whereas this game, he will have some pressure.
To see it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, this is a...
Aaron Donald should be back as well.
Sorry, what was that?
Aaron Donald should be back this week as well.
Yeah, that's the big deal.
And that was the big one.
Well, this is the thing. This is why I think this game's a bit going to fly under the wire somewhat, but this is a massive test of both teams. You've got Jared Goff thrown against Josh Norman, for one thing.
And there's some pass rushers there in Washington, so I want to see him under pressure. Yeah, that's the big thing for me.
And then, obviously, the Redskins probably shouldn't have lost that game to the Eagles, but it happens.
They were sloppy throughout that game.
Yeah, in this game, this is also one of the games you can't be sloppy just because of who the Rams have on that defensive line. You cannot afford sloppy blocking.
No, not with Donald back.
No, God no. So this is going to be a test for both teams. This will be for the Rams one of those games that will probably. Yeah, if they win, it might set the tone for the rest of the season going forward.
People might start taking them seriously. I It's just the Redskins, like that offense. You know how you mentioned with the Titans and chemistry. I feel like I'm seeing the same thing with the Redskins offense.
Oh, see, no, that's not my problem with the offense. My problem with the offense is who the hell is Cousins throwing to?
Well, on paper, like Jameson Crowder's a solid number 2. Terrell Pryor, just he hasn't gelled with Pryor at all. It wouldn't seem.
I mean, yeah, but still.
And Josh Dotson, last year's number 1 pick, who's just not done anything.
Oh, that's the thing. I'm just looking at looking at who he's throwing to. And bar Terrell Pryor and Jordan Reed, I'm like, okay. So,
Jameson Crowder's quite good.
Well,
it's just, he had a really good chemistry with both Garcon and Deshaun Jackson. It's going to be hard to replace that immediately.
Oh, yeah, he is. That's one thing I noticed watching it. I know Pryor's fast, and he's turned out to be quite a decent receiver, which I called, by the way. He is missing Djax. Something fierce. It's not
even about Djax catching passes. It's just what he does.
Well, no, that's what I meant.
Him being lined up out wide. Yeah, it changes things. But the Rams, we'll talk about them quickly. Like, it's hard to read too much into that. Gurley struggled. I want to see him do better. And, I want to see how Goff handles pressure. I liked the look of the receiving group there. And defensively, there's nothing to even say at this point. They weren't even tested. They should be quite good, but we don't know. I think the Redskins take this one. They have to have this game. They have to. And I think Kerrigan and Jonathan Allen can get a little bit of pressure, force Goff into a couple of mistakes, and I think the Redskins sneak it.
Well, it's also the other thing as well is the Redskins can't afford to start 0-2.
They can't. Them and the Saints are the two teams to me, and actually the Chargers, with postseason aspirations. If they hit 0-2 this week, it looks tough.
See, I've actually got this going to the Rams because
I wouldn't be shocked.
I think their new head coach, his name always escapes me.
Don McVay.
Yeah, I think he's injected that team with a new breath of life, as it were, and I think they're gonna take it to the Redskins. So I've got the Rams for this. As much as that pains me to say, because they'll be, top, one.
The 2-0 top of the division, LA Rams.
Yeah, but no, I've got the Rams getting this. I don't think Washington's going to fix their issues anytime soon. I think there's more problems there than people see in Washington right now.
Fair enough. Arnie?
I've got the Rams as well, taking this one. I think with Aaron Donald back, I think the O-line's good in Washington, but I think there's going to be some pressure on Cousins, and the fact that he hasn't gelled with his receivers. I think that offense, as long as Jared Goff doesn't make the mistakes, I think he's going to have himself a nice game again, and the issue he's going to have is against that secondary.
Fair dues. Right, we'll move on to a NFC West matchup. Man, a few years ago, this was like as good as it got.
Yeah.
And now
win.
San Fran, I think, they're on that same kind of level with the Jets. Where I look at them and I'm just like, your offense is a mess. I don't know how you're planning to win games with that. Yeah. It looks that way. Their defense did enough to keep them in it against, a sloppy Panthers team.
Well, hold on.
They looked okay.
Hold on, but this is in relation to the matchup, this is ignoring the fact that Russell Wilson was running for his life.
Both of these offensive lines were awful in week 1. Both of them. This would be like that first half of the Packers-Seahawks game.
This will be a low scoring affair. Seattle will edge this game and will win this game.
Yeah, San Fran, I can't even see San Francisco getting points. Unless Carlos Hyde breaks a couple of big runs.
Whoever gets a touchdown in this game wins. That's the way I see it. One touchdown that's going to win this game.
Yeah, it's going to be an ugly one, for sure. As I say, with San Fran, not a huge amount to say about them. Their offense was a mess. The O-line was terrible. Hoyer struggled. Defensively, they did okay. They contained the run pretty well. But I thought the Panthers were really off, so it's hard to judge them too much. Seattle, though.
You know, it's quite funny what you just
Seattle
said.
game.
What you just said about the Niners offense, I was like, is he talking about the Niners or the Seahawks? I can't tell the difference.
Well, I mean, the Seahawks, similar problems. Offensively, that line delivered one of the worst performances I've ever seen. I mean, Wilson, he didn't get sacked that often, but he just... They couldn't run the ball at all. I mean, at least the Niners could run the ball a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't remember...
I've never seen an uglier looking offense than what Seattle offered up last weekend.
Well, I think during...
It wasn't against good defence either. That's the thing. That's what's got to be so concerned.
I know. But the thing is, I think during the Seahawks Green Bay game, I can't remember if it was either you or Arnie who I text saying by week 8 Russell Wilson's going to be in a wheelchair. Because at this rate, he bloody will be.
Yeah. Or his legs are just going to fall off from all the running.
The way my fantasy team's going, he will be on IR very soon.
Yeah. I forget, maybe you've absorbed my curse this year. But I mean, the Seahawks D looks legit. That they are who we thought they were. And I think they just got tired. They were on the field a hell of a lot in this game, but they played great. Defensive front looked good. You know, both Bennett and Averill were menaces throughout. Secondary played well. Tune. And I mean, I can't pick against the Seahawks at home against the Niners. The Niners are, they're as bad as it gets. I'm guessing we're all in the same boat there.
No.
Yeah.
I'm calling a tie. No, you laugh. I'm being deadly serious. I'm calling a tie for this. The
First ever 0-0 in NFL history.
No, okay, maybe, but no. Realistically, I'm looking at 3-3 or 6-6 for this. I mean, the Seahawks got the advantage with the defense, yeah, but unless hold on, who's starting QB in Niners?
Brian Hoyer.
Is it Hoyer? Yeah. As long as he doesn't turn the ball over, I'm calling this a tie. And both offenses are so inept.
It was awful. The team that put the beating on Seattle, we'll move to that one. This is a good game. Green Bay heading to Atlanta, rematch of the NFC title game. Green Bay looked, they look good. Hard to judge the defense based on Seattle's offensive line, but the offense did okay. Played really well in the second half. First half, they're a bit of a mess, but they figured it out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is...
And I'm willing to give a bit of a pass when you play the Seahawks defense.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, is the one thing you've got to keep in mind with Green Bay is last year as well, they kind of started off quite slowly.
Oh, very slowly.
Yeah, the past couple of years they seem to be starting off slowly. I mean, I think this matchup's going to be basically... it's going to be Aaron Rodgers or Matt Ryan who gets the advantage over two mediocre defenses. And I don't know, that's a tough call, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see that. I mean, the Falcons are a bit disappointing in week 1. They didn't look particularly explosive, struggled to run the ball. Matt Ryan didn't really get things going, looked a bit uncomfortable. They got beat at the line of scrimmage. The Chicago front seven did a number on them. And on the defensive side, they played fine, but they didn't get as much pressure as I would have expected against the Bears' tackles are not good. So it's got to be a bit concerned. I trust the Packers' weapons more. I mean, in the receiving game. And Aaron Rodgers is, he's Aaron Rodgers.
Well, see, what will be interesting for me in this game...
Bennett was such a big addition to this Packers offense.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I think my biggest thing for this game is to see if... I know that the Seahawks O-line is
I want to see how much of that Packers defense...
I want to see if that D-line can do at least similar to what they did to Russell Wilson. Because I was very impressed, actually.
Mike Daniels had himself a day. Oh my goodness.
Oh, Mike Daniels. Oh, he actually when he actually had to come off the field to get some oxygen because he was kicking too much ass. Oh, he was so good.
Nick Perry had a good game. Like it's the secondary though that is the big question, and they should be tested this weekend. So
Oh, 100%.
They're
got a
going
better
to have
leader.
to get pressure, so we'll see how they do. Falcons' offensive line showed some chinks in the armour this week, I think. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, if you're the Packers, it's just a case of how much success you can get from that run game, because teams are just going to defend the pass against you every game. So they've just got so many weapons. I mean, Bennett, Adams, Cobb, Jordy Nelson, and Montgomery's a converted receiver at running back. Like, you know.
See, when you say Packers run game, I'm still confused to this day. Do you mean their running back or
I've-
Aaron Rodgers?
Ty Montgomery played pretty well at running back in the second half of that game.
No, but Aaron Rodgers has more rushing yards than all of his running backs combined.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers.
Um,
But yeah,
I've got
the
this down for
Falcons.
the
I don't know what to make of that Falcons performance though. Is that just them reverting to the mean?
Is that-
They are. Is last year the oddity?
Well, this game's going to be the test to judge whether or not last year was the oddity. It's happened before. I mean, Arizona made it to the Super Bowl last year, so everyone gets one.
Yeah, the Super Bowl hangover has a long and active history. I mean, who have we got in this one then?
I've got Green Bay taking this game because I just think if the defense, I know with the offensive line, but if the defense does continue to play like that for them and steps up majorly, I think it would give Atlanta too many problems.
Dan?
Oh, sorry. I already said a couple of times. I've got the Packers edging the South. I think Aaron Rodgers against that Atlanta defense. No, I've got Green Bay taking this.
I think based on the pressure I saw from both fronts, I'm going to give the edge to Green Bay. It's a game that could go either way. The Falcons are a more balanced team, but based on what I saw in Week 1, I'm going to give the edge to the Packers at the minute. They looked a lot sharper. I think having played such a big game in Week 1 will probably help them a little going into Week 2. So I'm with you guys. So I'm going to go with the Packers to pull off a road upset. And we finish up with a bit of an odd Monday night game, really. Detroit heading to New York to face the Giants. The Giants delivering one of the worst offensive performances in the history of my time watching football. They were absolutely pointless.
Yeah, the offensive line was absolute garbage, and I think they missed.
It's the same as last year, except without Odell Beckham. We saw what would have happened if they had no Odell last year.
Yeah, it's terrible, and for that reason alone, I have to go with Detroit. I mean, the Giants' defense stepped up a bit, but
they played great. They played fantastic. I think they were on the field for about 80 snaps.
Yeah, but I think
they held everything in check.
Yeah, I think that O-line trouble carries on. I mean, Detroit have somewhat of a pass rush there, so I think they'll be able to get to Eli a bit. And I see the Giants dropping to 0-2 in that division. I think will slowly become to open up quite a bit.
Dan, did you watch that game?
Trying to think. No.
Yeah, it was ugly.
I caught the odd highlight and whatnot, but you know,
What
Giants,
highlight?
that's the point, really. But you know, Giants without Odell Beckham.
Yeah.
I can safely say this is going to be one of the most. If the trend from Sunday carries on, this is going to be one of the most undisciplined games as well this week, because the Lions are always so sharp at the moment.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Lions were just a mess up until that fourth quarter. Their defense played a lot better than I expected, but the offense looked horrific. They couldn't run the ball at all. They were giving up tons of pressure, and Stafford looked flustered and inaccurate. And then the fourth quarter happened, and it all came good. Detroit played well defensively. That was a big surprise to me. How much of that was on the Cardinals being terrible offensively? I'm not sure.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? But I mean, to be honest with you, I wasn't that surprised. I thought they had a decent defense going into the year.
What, the Lions? I'm worried about their front seven. I don't think there's much talent there.
You know, put it this way, they're not New Orleans, so it's kind of how that rolls. This is trouble territory for the Giants, though, because again, you can't afford to start off 0-2 in that division, especially Dallas and then the Eagles doing their thing at the moment.
And frankly, I just imagine the media will get all over them. You can't deliver another offensive performance like that. I mean, the Giants have a shot in this one. Their defense is that good, and they did play that well. If Odell Beckham's back, he'll make some plays for them. But, I mean, all the Giants can do at the minute is throw quick passes. That's how bad that offensive line is. Like, they can't run the ball at all, and they can't pass protect long enough to throw anything else. So it's just going to be screens and quick passes. Detroit, their line's okay. I think they'll struggle to get too many points in this one. But at the end of the day, I have to pick the team that actually has an offense. So, yeah, I've got to pick the Lions to win this one. Unless Beckham plays. If Beckham plays, I think the Giants find a way to win it.
Hold on. Go to Arnie. I'm actually just checking Odell Beckham's status. Give me a second.
Arnie? You got Detroit?
Yeah, I've got Detroit in this one. I just think with the Giants' offensive line, I just don't see him holding them.
Yeah, they just looked thoroughly incompetent. It was shocking.
I'm not seeing anything official about Odell Beckham.
I don't think they'll win.
So I think he will be playing.
I suspect so.
But even if he does,
I don't feel good about picking the Giants, but
no, even if he does, though, I've got the Lions winning this.
Fair enough. Well, there we have it. That's week 2. I expect it to be a better week than week 1. Week 1 was, I think, probably the sloppiest opening weekend of football I've seen.
Yeah, it would. I said earlier about this. The amount of, if you just look for individual defensive player stats, you're seeing so many picks, so many sacks, and normally you see this after like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but we're seeing it after week 1.
It's the amount of sacks from interior line, like D linemen, like tackles and stuff. That's really concerning.
Yeah.
I think the standard of offensive line play is at an all-time low in this league.
Very low scoring week as well.
Yeah, it was. Offenses really struggled. And they normally say, it's normally the defenses that come out strong. So we'll see if things continue this week.
Yeah.
But we'll see how things go, and we'll be back with a similar episode next week. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. As always, you guys, do you want to say bye?
No, cheers, guys.
I'll do my little outro first. Yeah, I'll do the little outro because I'm fancy like that. If you've enjoyed this, check out some of the previous episodes. There's going to be game previews coming up for some of the Sunday games. I was going to preview tomorrow's game, but really, I'd rather preview a game that's, not the Texans and Bengals. So I'm going to do that. There'll be some more reviews coming up Monday, and I'll try and record a couple on Sunday so that they're up on time. You can, comment on this. Got the comment section below, the Cover Zero Facebook page. You can find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. You can like, share, subscribe, check out Patreon. That'll all be greatly appreciated by us. Thank you so much for watching. It's a pleasure as always. Anything to say, guys?
Thank you, guys, and just keep watching.
Yeah, and also don't forget we've got official Twitter for the channel as well, which is just at Cover Zero Show. So if you just follow us on there and say hello, that's where I mainly post. And for the Cardinals fans out there, game over, man. It's game over. It's a bug hunt.
It's bad times. It is bad times. But thank you so much as ever. Have a great evening, and go Bucks.